8 of the performance requirements. It says neither party, or an investor of any of the parties can impose or enforce any requirements to export a given level of percentage of goods and services. So you have a lot of export zones which say that the condition of all the benefits you get by participating in the zone is that you export X amount or Y proportion of your goods and export. You can't do that. Okay? You can't achieve you can't ask for a certain level of percentage of use of domestic content. You cannot use goods that are produced locally, so all your procurement, and so on. You cannot relate, in terms of your content. I mean, the whole, in terms of goods, services, technology transfer, any kind of performance requirement that you can conceive of. Basically, this is excluded, prohibited, and of course, in the terms of the dispute settlement provisions of these trade agreements, it means that there are sanctions attached to your non-compliance with some of these things. And then we know also that there are other challenges in terms of the fact that the commodities, the financialization of commodities that Sam discussed should alert us to other developments. In a situation where there's a shift in terms of production capacity on a global scale, the distribution of production capacity, the scramble for resources is intensifying. That's the first thing. But in a situation where the core economies of the international economic system themselves are in trouble, the temptation or the need to grab and monopolize, becomes even more accentuated, and that means that the role of the state becomes more stronger, and the role of the state and interstate conflicts and competition also becomes a lot more territorialized. The state, after all, is a territorial institution, and so on and so forth. So the grabbing of places and so on becomes part of that thing. One example is the EU Raw Materials Initiative, which starts out by saying that in the non-energy raw materials, the European Union is losing out to different competitors in the world. So basically, their interest is competition, like I said. So they name Japan, US, China, so on and so forth. And that for that reason, they have to intensify the kind of, use their trade diplomacy, use their development policy, and so on and so forth to intensify the kinds of their control and access to the kinds of raw materials that they need in a variety of different sectors. So Africa comes in for special mention, certainly. It comes in for special mention and with mechanisms which are clearly defined, especially in terms of the trade and development dimension of things. One of the things that are targeted by it is that, for example, you cannot use export taxes in Africa. Now, export taxes in Africa are part of the trade and investment and economic policy instruments, which we use to ensure that not too many raw materials are exported on the one hand, and on the other hand, some degree from of resources are generated from our existing primary commodity trade to support nascent or infant industries which can develop in relation to those kind of trades, or even new raw material sectors and so on and so forth. The Europeans think that such a thing discriminates against them. It does not release enough raw materials onto the market for them. It is trade distorting, and also it means that your resource nationalism is likely to increase. If you have a greater stake in ensuring that raw materials are not sent out willy-nilly or exploited without a plan or a program or any agenda whatsoever, then it means that your own interest and your own stake in controlling and limiting and using for your own purposes those raw materials becomes something that becomes,